Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I have a friend of mine who I have worked with on and off over the years, and I've had a chance to reconnect with John Trentacosta. Thank you very much for joining me today on the program.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Thank you so much.
Well, so I've known you for many, many years, but there's a lot of things I don't know about you, and I learned quite a bit when I started doing some research. Now, you're from New York, right? Where exactly are you? Are you from the city or are you from an outskirts on the city?
I like to make a joke about it and say, no, I'm not from the city. I'm from Staten Island, although Staten Island is one of the five boroughs, as we all know, but it may as well be Ohio or Alaska somewhere.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't realize that Staten Island is part of the city. So you're from Staten Island originally. You grew up there, I assume?
I did, yeah. Well, actually, when I grew up, it was a beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, it was unlike anywhere else in New York City. And one of the reasons, of course, because it was isolated. There was the only way to get there was a ferry.
Mhm.
And now, of course, there's a bridge
Yeah,
since
nowadays there's a big
1960.
gigantic bridge. Yeah. So what high school did you graduate off of Staten Island?
Graduated from a high school, which is the name of a town, because Staten Island is broken up into many towns, called New Dorp, Newdorp, which I couldn't even give you the history of the name of, where that came from.
That's okay. You don't have to. So you graduated from high school there. So at what age, when did you start playing the drums? So was that, I'm assuming when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, in elementary school, I started playing in the sixth grade. There was a band, and in those days, all the elementary schools had bands, and unlike today, unfortunately, another one of my pet peeves. But I started in sixth grade, and
Okay. So you played all the way through middle school and you played in high school, and I assume you played in the marching band and you played in the jazz band and all of those, right?
well, not exactly. In those days, first of all, I didn't have a middle school. That's how far back I go. Uh, it was
Back then it
K.
was junior high school.
It wasn't even a junior high. It was
Oh,
K through 8, and then you went to high school. And and they didn't have marching bands. East Coast the thing, New York City, well, marching band was not a thing at all. So anyway, yeah, and I played, but I did play in jazz band in high school, and actually, my high school band teacher was an iconic figure, and his son is a good friend of mine who I may have met or heard, Michael Moriali, a trumpet player friend of mine from New York, who appeared on some of my straight up albums, and who comes here regularly and plays all the time. He's a great trumpet player.
okay. So are you strictly a drummer or are you also a percussionist? In other words, I assume you play all the percussion instruments. Do you also play mallet instruments?
I don't play any of the percussion instruments, oddly enough. I'm a drum set player. I regret that. I mean, I wish I had played all percussion instruments, because I think it would enhance my musicality in many multiple ways. But I didn't. I never did, and I just kind of, when you have a limited amount of time to when you get older, as you know, you have a limited amount of time to do anything. You kind of just fixate and say, well, what do I really want to do with my time?
Mhm.
So that's
Okay,
how it
well,
evolved for
that's
me.
fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you're a great trap set player. I like when you play. So you went to New York University. Now, New York University is a humongous campus. I mean, it's spread out all over the city. I was looking at that and I didn't realize, I thought it was kind of like in one of the boroughs, but it's really not. It's spread out all over the city. So the music department is located where exactly?
The east side, adjacent to Washington Square Park, right in
Okay.
the village. That's where it is. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the main campus.
Okay.
Still, there may be annexes here and there. It still is Washington. It's around NYU surrounds Washington Square Park.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes a little more sense to me because, yeah, when I looked it up, it was showing me where everything was. And I'm like, wait, this is really spread out. Oh my goodness. It's all the way across the whole city. What did you study when you went to New York University? Did you study music?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I got a graduate degree there. I got an undergraduate degree at a little college on Staten Island called Wagner College, and it was in music education.
Okay.
But my graduate degree came, and that was 1970. So 7 years, 8 years later, hanging around listening to Blue Note and playing the blindfold test all day with my piano player friend, he talked me into going back to school and getting into this program, which was really brand new at NYU, and it was a jazz performance graduate degree.
Oh, nice.
And it was great. I mean, I got to play in an ensemble with Jimmy Giuffre, and also for a thesis we had to do two concerts that instead of a written thesis. And in one of our concerts, our first one actually, Jimmy Giuffre and Amir Abdul Malik, the bass player with Monk on so many of those records, both of them played with us in our graduate concert, which was, an honor. I mean, to have those guys, it was really great.
Right. So your degree, so you've got an undergraduate degree in music education, and you've got a graduate degree in jazz performance, obviously for trap set, for drum set.
Mhm.
So that's while you were doing all of this, were you an active musician in New York City? Were you gigging a lot?
I was, yeah. Actually, when my friend kind of pitched it to me that we would do this together, because my worry was, well, what about all the academic side of music, meaning, what about harmony and I've got
theory and stuff like that,
and all that stuff. And he said, don't worry about, he's a piano player, don't worry about it, I'll help you. We'll get you through that kind of thing. And but one of the sweetest parts was that, well, we don't have to do a thesis. We just have to play concerts, and that's what we do all the time. We just have to do a gig, pretty much, clean it up, but do a gig. And so I was playing a lot in New York at the time.
Nice. Okay. So one of the things I read about you is that you were an assistant arts director for the Staten Island Chamber Music Players for 14 years. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What did that entail?
Yeah, that was interesting because how that came about was this. There was a great tenor saxophone player on Staten Island named Cesar DeMoro. There were a number of underground legends that lived on Staten Island, and then a few that we, have heard of. I mean, there weren't that many jazz people that lived there at the time. The people we know of are Jimmy Knepper, Chuck Wayne lived there. Those are people, that are pretty much well known in the jazz world. But there were a couple of real underground legends, one of them being a trumpet player by the name of Don Joseph, and the other being this tenor player, Cesar DeMoro. And so I was playing in a quartet of Cesar's, and it was a really good group. And so Cesar's wife was an arts administrator, and she formed a group called the Staten Island Chamber Music Players. And one of the components was this jazz quartet that her husband led. And we played all over the place. We had all kinds of gigs. She got us the gigs. All we had to do was show up and play. And that's the way it usually is, for a sideman, which is what I always was until I came out here. And anyway, so at some point, being a struggling musician, of course, you always, make that much money as a musician, and most of us don't. Some do, are fortunate, but higher percentage certainly don't. And I was one of those. And she offered me this job working with her. And I said, okay. I mean, I just honestly did it because I needed the money, but I learned a lot of skills that at the time I didn't know would help me much later in life.
So I take it when you say learned a lot of administrative skills, right?
That's right.
Yeah, because there is an art to being an administrator, and there is an art to learning how to get funding, how to write proposals, how to communicate properly, how to network properly. It isn't just about showing up and playing gigs. So this chamber music players was a jazz thing, right?
Well, it was mostly classically oriented. One component of it was the jazz quartet.
Okay, see that. So because when I saw this term, the chamber music players, I'm thinking classical, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not something I would have expected out of you. So you did all of it. It wasn't just jazz, it was classical, it was the whole thing. So administrative wise, what were some of your duties?
Well, that was helping her write grants.
Okay.
Was one of them. Yeah, pretty much that was it. I mean, how to manage money and how to, in those days, Local 802 was, it was a thriving, all unions were thriving more so in those days than they are today. Local 802 was probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, local within the American Federation of Musicians. And so most of our money, actually, if not all of it, came from, well, no, not all of it, but most of it came from what was called the Musicians Trust Fund. And the Musicians Trust Fund came directly from the local. So how you applied for that money and got that money was key. And it was, it had its own, its own way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And not like just writing a grant. It was specific to
right.
That.
Yeah, there are a lot of skills in that most people nowadays have no idea what to do. So you got a good hands-on lesson on that. So let's talk about why you're here, because you moved to Santa Fe a long time ago, right? So what brought you to New Mexico? Why? I mean, I know you live in Santa Fe, but what brought you to the area? Why here?
Well, it's 30 years that I am here, and I love it just as much as when I first moved here. So just, the upfront story, right, about it. It's a kind of an involved story in that I came here, believe it or not, in 1965, and went to the College of Santa Fe for 2 years.
Oh,
I hated it. I hated New Mexico. I was 17 years old. I hated New Mexico. The only reason I got here was because my parents, all of a sudden, did a behind my back, got me into college against my wishes. Okay, because I just wanted to be a drummer. I just wanted to be a jazz musician. And they would have nothing of that, and they wanted me to go to college. And of course, my grades were not that great, or I didn't even apply in any normal way or anything like that. And so all of a sudden, they rigged the deal, and then here I was going to the College of Santa Fe. Well, here I was one day at Kennedy Airport, getting on a 4-engine prop charter plane with a bunch of other misfits like myself from New York, going to this place that we couldn't even identify on the map, and arriving 8 hours later. The flight took, direct flight. 8 hours later, arriving in Albuquerque, getting off the plane, looking around, and literally starting to cry. Like, what am I doing here? And but 2 years it took me to get out. Although I did a little playing, I played with a piano player that used to live here called Johnny Gilbert. I don't know if you ever met Johnny.
Ring a bell.
Yeah, he was a good piano player, and I played with him here during the second year that I was here. But anyway, I got out and went back to New York, and then I did go to college. Finished up at Wagner at the small college and got a music education degree. I mean, that made the most sense to me. There was no music at the College of Santa Fe. I was a math major the first year. The second year, I was an engineering major, neither of which I wanted to do. And anyway.
Okay, so wait, so you left, you went back. So what brought you back to Santa Fe, and when did you come back to Santa Fe? And you said 30 years ago, but be more specific. Why did you come back here then, if you hated it so much from the College of Santa Fe?
Okay, so fast forward to 1992, a whole lot of years later, right, from 1965. And I'm playing music, and that's all I did. I never did anything else. I never taught, even though I got a degree, a bachelor's degree in music education. I never taught. And so I in 1992, life is a little rough for me, and I'm I haven't had health insurance my whole life. I'm getting a little older, starting to think about those things. And anyway, so I'm not doing so well in terms of most of my gigs are weddings and bar mitzvahs and not playing jazz, much less playing jazz, certainly. And I'm not that happy with my career path, how it has unfolded. So anyway, all of a sudden, 1992, it was the summer of 92. I have 2 cents, 10 cents in my pocket for the first time, maybe since 1965. And I said, I got to get out of here. I never took a vacation in my life. It was only where music took me, and it took me to a couple of cool places, and I lived in a couple of places, and that's another story, out of the country. But in 1992, I got a couple of dimes, and I said, well, I got to get out of here and take a vacation like normal people. I never had a vacation or anything, and I had a couple of dollars. And so that I remember picking up a New York Times travel magazine and Sunday Times, and there was Santa Fe was like hot on fire, was all over the magazine. I said, wow, Santa Fe. I know people in Santa Fe because some of my friends who I had gone to school with stayed here from New York, but they would always visit me when they would come back to see their families, their parents. And so I was always, I kind of had an ear open to what was going on in Santa Fe and how things had evolved for them anyway. And I had some friends. So I said, hey, I'll go to Santa Fe. This would be great. I mean, I'm a lot older than 17, right? I'm not a kid anymore by any means. And so I said, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go for a couple of months, and I'm going to bring my drums and see if I could play. So I'm going to drive out. And that's what I did. And what happened to me was when I hit Santa Fe, when I hit New Mexico, I went, oh my God, what beauty. I mean, it just totally blew me away in terms of its intrinsic beauty. And then when I hit Santa Fe, I was a different person. I wasn't 17. I was into health foods. I was into Buddhist meditation. I was into all kinds of things. And here I am. I hit Santa Fe, and here's this little town, and there's a health food store on every corner, and everybody's into spirituality. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Well, yeah, 27 years compared to when you were 17 to when you were that old then, it makes a big difference. You matured quite a bit. You realized what you were heading into. Well, see, now that's interesting that you would have just dropped everything and come here. And you're not the only one who's told me that kind of story where it was like, I threw a dart at the wall and it happened to land in New Mexico. Or, I was closed my eyes and I picked a spot and it was like, oh, I'll just go there. Oh, look, it's in New Mexico. You're not the only one who's told me that. So I see, and I think that's very interesting that you would have the change in the attitude from when you were a 17-year-old kid to when you were much older and much more mature. It showed you that Santa Fe is very interesting, and New Mexico is a very interesting state. Most people think we're just desert like Phoenix and like Arizona, and we're nothing like Phoenix and we're nothing like Arizona. So let's talk about a couple of other things. Let's talk about your Santa Fe Jazz Collective, because that is something I find extremely interesting. You are the founder and you run Santa Fe Jazz Collective. Did I get that straight?
Well, I have a business partner who was a co-founder, and her name is Linda Highhill. Yeah, we co-founded it in it's 2013. That's 9 years ago.
Okay.
We co-founded it, and we got a nonprofit within that year. I think it didn't take that long, 6 or 8 months or something like that. And what had happened was, since I moved here in 1992, the biggest obstacle with staying here was really how much jazz there would be and how much opportunity I would have to play. And one of the first people I met was Arlen Asher. I remember going up to Arlen. I remember hearing Arlen, and because I would have had to leave. I mean, I really would have had to leave if I couldn't play. Everything else was great, but I did have to dust off my degree, and get a job teaching in order to stay here. I knew that, that was the compromise, right? So anyway, so I met Arlen, and that was a great story because I met Arlen playing at the Hilton Hotel. And one night I went in and I heard this jazz group, and I couldn't believe that, it was a quartet, and the other 3/4 of the quartet was certainly far below par. And there was Arlen standing out, just like a jewel in the desert that he was musically, right? And I remember they took a break. I couldn't believe it. And they took a break, and he went over to there was a table that he had a case there, and put his instrument, opened the case and put his instrument. So he had his back. I came up behind him, and I was so excited to hear such a great player that I didn't even introduce myself. I just, tapped him on the back, and he, as soon as he turned around, I said, "What are you doing playing with these guys?" And Arlen looked at me sideways, like, "Who are you?" And then he kind of smiled, and of course that was the beginning of a great friendship and a great relationship with an incredible musician, as we all know Arlen was. And anyway, so that was the first, that's how that happened. And so it was always a quest for me. And then I wound up meeting Bob Fox shortly after that. He had just moved here. And John Belzer was here, and he was playing bass. And I said, I want to play with these guys. It was like, I had to find people that I really wanted to play with. And so the only thing I was missing was a trumpet player. So I brought in my friend and made him an offer he couldn't refuse, another Italian. He understood that, right? And he came to New Mexico to make a recording. I put a quintet together called Straight Up. We made a recording, and the rest in a sense is history. So what we really had to do, and always had an ear or eye for, was bringing people in and finding an opportunity for them to play and creating something, something musical that really wasn't here. So I was always bringing people in as often as I could, or whenever I could get someone to finance it or something like that. So that's kind of how it started, and that led up to, of course, and that culminating in the Santa Fe Music Collective. Which
is interesting, because all your experience working with the chamber group in Staten Island helped you develop and get you got the 501c3, you were able to get the nonprofit status, you were able to develop and make these opportunities for people to perform. And it's not just for you. Your Santa Fe Music Collective brings in a ton of people to play, which is your whole point, was to create opportunities for people to perform, right? Isn't that the whole idea of the Santa Fe Collective?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So in 2021, how many concerts did the Santa Fe Collective produce?
I'm not sure, but we're up to about 26.
Okay. Still, that's to figure. Okay. So you say on average, you put 26 to 30 concerts a year. That's a lot of concerts that you guys produce that allow people to play. And for that, I compliment you, because that's the opportunities that musicians need. Not everybody has this opportunity. And by you providing the opportunity, I think it's a wonderful thing. And it's a great idea. And it allows it allows the audience to experience new people, and it allows you guys to bring in new people. And I think that's awesome. And so you've been doing this since, you said, 2013. So 9 years now, you've been part of the Santa Fe Music Collective, right? You've run the Santa Fe Music Collective. I should be more specific.
Yeah, it's been a growing experience. I mean, it started out small, and it started out one concert a month. Actually, it started out prior to 2013. It started out a couple of years before, and it was as a fundraiser for KSFR.
Okay.
And then things at the station kind of fell apart in terms of the management and how things were run at the station. And so that's, at the time, my business partner was the executive director of the station, Linda Highhill, and she had a fallout with the board and lost her job, and then the new interim management had a fallout with me, and had no respect for what I was doing, bringing these concerts, these fundraisers to the station. So we just got together, Linda and I, and said, hey, look, let's just keep this going.
Yeah, do it on your own.
Form our own nonprofit. She said, I'll take care of the administrative work and you just do what you're doing, booking people. I consider myself more of a musical director. Actually, that's my title, right? Musical director, putting things together, putting bands together, organizing people, that sort of thing, making it right, keeping the quality of music up high, which is always my goal. That's what I strive for.
So let's transition, because I want to talk to you about KSFR. So sure. KSFR is 101.1 in Santa Fe, and you have been a jazz radio host there since 2006. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, and you've done numerous shows. You did one with Arlen Asher all the time before.
10 years.
Yeah, you did one with Arlen for the years and years and years. So you are still active there. Do you still do shows? And what air times are you on?
Sure. I still have a show. It's the show that Arlen and I had together, same time slot, which was Monday morning. We did the show for 10 years together. And that was the greatest experience of all. And it was, the time slot is Monday morning from 9 to 12,
okay.
9 a.m. to 12 noon. And I still do that. Of course, now it's called the Bopper House. It used to be called the Jazz Experience and the Bopper House. And the reason for the two names is that I had a show prior to collaborating with joining with Arlen. Mine was called the Bopper House. His was called the Jazz Experience. That's simple. And one of the things that came out of us co-hosting the show together was two musicians who talked about the music in depth sometimes, Yeah. And that was something that, initially I wasn't sure how it would go over, but it turned out that people really, really enjoyed the show. And enjoyed.
And Arlen had some great stories, didn't he?
And Arlen came here in what, 1950s or something like that. So Arlen was really part of a big part of the evolution of the whole music scene, and specifically the jazz scene too, here in northern New Mexico. And Arlen went way back. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I understand. So you've been doing this long, and you've got the Monday time slot, and you said from 9 to 12, and it's obviously it's jazz. So please don't stop doing that. I want you to continue doing that. I wish we could get that down here, but I've learned that you can tune in online at KSFR, and you can listen to the radio show online. So in case anybody is interested, you can always listen to it online. And I think it's ksfr.org. Is that what the website is? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. KSFR.org. You can listen to it, live stream it. But also you can get it on your radio. Most of Albuquerque can, and even further south. And the signal goes all the way up to Alamosa, and except there are spots, where people have trouble getting it, or it's not too clear, or that kind of thing. And there are spots, I know, all over the place. But they're even working on that. They put up a new tower maybe 10 years ago that enabled it to get out of Santa Fe and get down to as far down as Berlin and as far.
Okay. Well, I'll have to try again, because I was just trying to tune it in the other day and I couldn't get it in on my car radio.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine. I think it's great. Like I said, I listened to it the other day, and I was got it live streamed on ksfr.org. So let's talk about some of your performing, because you performed with a lot of big names. I mean, so just so I can get these, you've performed with James Moody, you've performed with Doug Lawrence, you've performed with Eddie Daniels, our local famous clarinetist, you've performed with Lee Konitz, you've performed with Bud Shank, you've even performed with, of course, Bobby Shew. So who do you, and I guess I should be more specific. So I know you perform on a regular basis around Santa Fe and Albuquerque, and you're part of the house band that performs at the Cactus Jam Session on Wednesday nights. So where else could we catch you performing on a regular basis in Santa Fe or in Albuquerque? Can you give me some of the places you're gigging at?
Well, best one of them all. I mean, not meaning better than one being better than another, but I am at a place called Club Legato here in Santa Fe 3 nights a week and 3 nights
Really?
in a row. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and it'll be coming up on a year now at the end of this month.
Boy, you sure are busy. So Wednesday nights at Cactus in Bernalillo, and Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Club Legato at Santa Fe. So see, you are busy. Nice. So I want to talk a little bit about your group Straight Up, because you guys have released 2 CDs. The first one's called Live Jazz in the Desert, which was released in '97, and No Need for Words, released in 2002. Are there any other albums that were released by Straight Up?
By Straight Up, no. Those are the only two.
Those are the only two? Okay.
And the difference in personnel is just the bass player. John Belzigai had left to go to LA, move to LA, and then David Parlato replaced him for the second album.
Okay. Yeah, they're great albums. They're both available on michaelmoralesmusic.com. You can catch them there. I couldn't find them on any streaming services though. Are they available on any of the streaming services?
No, I've never taken care of business in that department, but I'm going to actually set up a website and start there anyway, and make them available on my own website. I never had a website for myself. It's kind of
right. You should get them on some of the streaming services, because what I could listen to, which was again on the website that I found them on, they sound great. I mean, they really do. You can find a couple. I think it was on Amazon or eBay. Somebody was selling them. They were selling them for like 10 or 12 bucks, the CDs and stuff like that. But boy, I think people would love to hear them, because they do sound great. And I will say that, Morales's trumpet playing is quite amazing.
He's a great player, Michael.
Yeah, he is. He's a great trumpet player.
Some of the things that he put out on his own are really great too.
Right. So what other recordings can we find? I mean, I'm assuming you're on other recordings. What other recordings can we hear you're playing on?
Well, the only other real jazz recording is the one I did with Doug Lawrence in 2017. And it's I'm trying to think. Doug has it on his website, and I don't know if you get it on Amazon or anything like that. And believe it or not, I just had a senior moment and I can't remember the name of it. It's called Desert Bop, or is it? I think.
Either way, I'll look it up. I'll put it
something
down
like
below.
that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Something like that.
So, boy, I mean, you do a lot of live playing and you do a lot of live gigging, and it's not something, I guess, some like when I had my conversation with Mickey Patton, he's like, I don't like recording. He said, I want to make music and I want it to float away. Those were his exact words. He likes to make the music, but he's not too into the recording part. And, I've listened to you play. I listen to you play often out at that Wednesday jam session. I've listened to you do so many gigs over the years. You're a great drummer. I wish you would record more.
Oh, thank you. Recording is a whole other thing. And yeah, there's live playing and there's recording, and it's very different. And I don't have chops meaning it's just
I understood.
For playing in a studio, because I haven't done it that much, to be honest, and like anything else, you need to get a handle on it.
I'm a perfectionist, and you sound to me like you're a perfectionist. And when I get into the studio and I start doing recording stuff, and I did a lot of recording stuff during the pandemic, I would play it over and over and over. And I was my own worst critic. Oh, I screwed up that one note, so I'd have to record the whole phrase again. And when you do a jazz session, you have to be able to work together. It's not like you can piece it bit by bit by bit. You have to put that whole thing together. And, John Coltrane was that way. He, go listen to some of these outtakes that he had. It's like, giant steps, track 3, giant steps, track
Right.
36, giant steps, track 118. I don't think he actually made that many, but he was a perfectionist, and he would record it over and over. And you sound like that kind of person. You're a perfectionist. And I agree with you. You know, you don't want to put something out there that doesn't represent what you really want it to represent, right?
Right, absolutely. In terms
Okay.
of, you know, my ability to play, how well I play, but also what I sound like, you know, and that's a big part of it. And one of my producers of the first album, Straight Up, was Alan Pasqua, a great piano player who just was here with Peter Erskine. But Alan's a dear friend as well. And I remember, you know, spending hours and hours and hours and hours referencing all the material that came from that session. Now, it was a live session, that first one. So there was no overdubbing. But yet what we did was we tried to play overdub, not overdub, but separate tracks of make sure they were the same tempo. So in case you had to do an interchange with
Right.
a wrong note here and there, or a little phrase somewhere on the head, something like that, you could do it. So anyway, I referenced and referenced so much. You know, we didn't take too many takes on each tune, but I spent a lot of time, and it was driving me pretty crazy. You know, it was this and that and little things. And I would have Alan on the phone, and I'd be talking to him, say, Alan, what about this? And at one point, Alan said to me, he said, man, just got to let go of it, you know, and just not listen to it anymore. He said, look, listen to some of those Cannonball things, you know, way back. And in so many groups, they're out of tune, or they have a little problem with what doesn't. He said, but it doesn't matter, you know, it's great.
I think
it swings.
Somebody just said the other day, you know, to me, and they said, and I laugh about it. They said, it's not that the recording is ever done. It's just that you ran out of money and you have to produce it and put it out there. All right. So we're running out of time. I want to thank John for everything that you're doing, because you've really done a great job of keeping jazz alive in the Santa Fe and the Albuquerque area. I love working with you. I love sitting in with your groups. Thank you very much, John. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate all your work. We appreciate everything that you've done for us. And thank you very much. We will see you
Thank you, Michael.
next time.